Hi, everyone, and welcome to the End of Life Journey and Beyond, the Sands of Time. My name is Lisa Strahs-Lorenc, and I am a Bereavement Support Specialist. Hello, Susan. Good to see you today.
Hi, Lisa. So good to see you too, and everybody else out there in the universe too. Today, we're talking about a little touchy subject. A lot of our subjects are when we do our videos, but today we're talking about death and the fact that it's the most universal human experience. We know that as a collective. We will all die one day, yet we rarely discuss it, and we rarely make it a meaningful and peaceful experience like it could be. So, as you know, Lisa's been in bereavement for a long, long time, and I am also an end-of-life doula. So, we collectively came up with a few things that we could share with you today that will support your loved one through their final journey, and not just to reduce suffering, because it's just not about the pain that they may or may not be in, but it's about creating moments of connection, okay, with dignity and even beauty during one of life's most profound transitions. So we're going to attempt to do this today in a couple different ways. Thoughts on what people have had that are dying. Okay, some of their thoughts, but then also some practical ways that you could bring right into your world today, if need be. So, Lisa, I know you wanted to start and tell us a real life experience that you just had with friends of yours.
Yes. So, yeah, this is apropos for today. So, I was at a funeral of the wife of someone of my partner's high school friends. I learned today that she was 75. She was Vietnamese. She was so proud to become a citizen. The funeral was at a church, but they handed out this really beautiful piece of paper, which basically talked about her life and who she was and, her philosophy of life and what was important to her in life. It was really very beautiful. And I really honed in on she had a brain disease, and so she wasn't very interactive. You couldn't really communicate with her that well. She just couldn't like speak out and communicate. However, at the end, all her family was with her and all, and she said, I want to go home, take me home. I want to be back with my sister, and my mother. Her mother had died when she was a baby. And she says, I'm ready. And in a couple minutes, she died. And the family described this as a very peaceful transition. And that's why it's so appropriate for today. Death
Yeah,
and dying and what it means to people. Yeah.
yeah. And I'm very sorry for your loss today, Lisa. That's hard.
I feel bad for the husband who obviously is relieved that she's not in that state anymore. Much
Sure.
harder for the family to see somebody. She didn't know what was really going on. Um, so yeah, but thank you. So we both done research about this topic. We'll call it, a good death, or we'll call it successful dying. And I know that's a strange way of thinking of it, but to me, it's an extension of life. You have a successful life, I'd like to have a successful death. And
Well,
that's
Lisa, that's one thing. I've been an end of life doula now for 8, 9 years, something like that. And one of the first things, and it was a really important topic that we learned when I became certified, was that we celebrate babies when they come into the world, right? We celebrate birthdays, first birthdays, second birthdays, right? But we're not celebrating leaving the world.
right.
And yet we all know it happens every single day.
Right.
We're coming in and we're leaving. But nobody really wants to talk about that, accept it. And especially, I think I mentioned this on our last video, if you're not around a lot of death in your life, you really think it's not coming,
Right.
and that it will never happen to you.
Right.
But things happen in a minute, things happen in a second, changes happen every day.
We know
So
that well, don't we?
that's right. We both do. So, it's important for both of us, and that's why we talk about celebrating, especially at the end of life, because people deserve that,
Yes,
right?
they do. Yes, they do.
So
So,
start with
uh,
your
uh,
what you found.
we did a little research, and there are some really core themes in what's important to people and what's important to their families. And the first one is what we call the preference for dying process, which most of us die in our sleep. Um, that we're prepared, that we feel
No,
we
most of
don't,
us hope, not most of us.
well, I personally, I'll speak personally, I would rather die in my sleep.
No,
And
no, no, of course, but I think you said
oh,
that wrong at first.
okay, dying during
You
sleep.
said
I'm sorry, during,
most people
yes.
die
No,
during their sleep.
no, this is a process. No, the preference here, according to this article, is that
Yes,
dying during sleep is their preference.
of course, and I think that's everybody's preference,
Yes, that's right. That's right.
right?
Yes,
Who
yes,
would say anything different?
yes.
That is the number one preference, right? But that always is not
That,
the case.
that's right.
With all these serious illnesses that we have to our bodies and our brains have to go through before we can get to that point,
Yes, yes.
right?
Right. That's right. And the second one is, of course, pain-free. Nobody wants to see their loved ones suffer, and we don't want to suffer either. I think suffering is horrible. And so what they call pain and symptom management is really important. And that's,
Manage pain proactively,
yes,
very important. And this is something I've been discussing for years and years. People are still afraid of the word hospice,
I know.
and they become your best friends.
Yes,
Whether you're in a hospital, in an assisted living, at home, they come to your home, they offer you 5 different services. We have a separate video about that you can watch. It is so beautiful and wonderful. And anybody that's involved with hospice, they have the most beautiful spirit, the most
they do.
beautiful soul. And they're there because they're passionate and they've had an experience and they want to be there for your loved one. So that's one of the things that hospice manages.
Yes.
Hospice manages your pain.
Yep. And I can
Okay.
attest to that. Plus, of course, they prepare. And there's something about preparation here too. That's important to be prepared. People want to feel prepared, and the family wants to feel prepared. And I felt very much that because we had hospice in home for my husband. And that
Yeah.
was for a week. So, and the
And
people
it,
were
and
amazing.
people don't really know and understand that somehow, like every household does not know what an end of life doula is yet. Unbelievably, hospice has been around for, a long, long
Yes.
time,
Yes.
but still, is it just a word of denial? A lot of people don't really understand how wonderful they can enhance and make the end of life experience much more peaceful,
Yes.
just in addition to what you can do,
Yes.
but as outsiders, yeah.
Yes. That next one about emotional well-being,
Hmm.
that's so important for people and the
Yeah,
families. Emotional support, psychological support, and the chance to discuss the meaning of death and their life,
yeah,
to talk about it with people, not avoid it, you know.
yeah,
Yeah.
yeah. No, and that is the time, different situations, different illnesses, everybody's different, right? We all have different timelines, and some people may not be speaking, weeks, a month
Yeah.
before. And by the way, if you're curious about the stages, the first 3 videos I think Lisa and I did way
Yes.
back when
Yep.
were the 3 stages of end of life,
Yes.
right?
Yes. Yes.
The phase 1, phase 2, and phase 3. So
Yep.
you can listen to more about that there.
Yeah.
But the emotions um really will run high. Emotions can run high between siblings, between even parents and children, because people are scared. And it's really fear. Fear is really hard to let go of, and not fear of the unknown and not knowing what to expect.
Sure.
If it is closer to the end, because we are talking about that end part, I also just wanted to raise light on respect their awareness, because even though they may be sleeping most of the time at the very end, and a lot of people do, and they seem unresponsive, so we're told.
Yep,
And you can research on your own, but this is what you'll find that hearing is the last to go,
that's right. That's right.
right? So just be aware of that. Take conversations out of the room and allow for a silence, a quiet tone, bring some ambiance, bring a presence in that room that's powerful. Whether you're one person sitting by the bedside or have 20 people in the room, make sure that you respect the conversation that's being had, the tone of the conversation. You don't want it to be too loud. And yeah, of course, some jokes can be made, and you want to have that kind of situation in the room at the end of life. But it's just important to be aware of these things. And sometimes you have to allow for that silence. You have to allow for that silence.
Yeah.
What do you have next on there?
So family. So there's the family part. So family support, so very important. Family acceptance of death, which is a whole nother deal because people can feel differently and then act differently, and then they're sparring with each other. Family is prepared for death. There's a whole nother deal. Somebody, wants them to hang on. The other person says, no, let them go. You know, you got kids, you got parents, like, there's a lot of people involved here. And
Yeah,
everybody is different. They have different personalities, even they're coming from the same family. So, and nobody wants to be a burden to the family. I know how strongly I feel about that. That's a
yeah,
big one for me. It is.
of
It's huge.
course.
It's
Of
huge.
course. And a lot of people do speak and have conversations and have their memories to the very end.
Yes.
So please know that if that's the case with you and your family, make that conversation the best it can possibly be. Share memories about happy times, about the accomplishments you've made, about the impact that they've had on your life. I mean, some of this conversation is hard, to sit and have to tell a parent, what you've meant to me all my life and what I've meant to you, and we love each other. Some families don't even say I love you half the time.
Yeah. How
So
sad
some
is
of that
that?
conversation can be
Yeah.
difficult, but
Yeah.
important.
Yeah. How sad is that? Think about that. They should be saying that all the time. They should hear I love
Right.
you all the time. And now we're at that stage. Sorry.
We're
Um,
living in a different world. You're
yeah.
right.
Dignity. Dignity. Respect as an individual and trying to be as independent as possible. You know, it's so hard, especially when there are things wrong with you and you feel like, your body's not your own anymore and can't do things anymore. Very hard. Dignity is a
Yeah.
big one.
Yeah. You have to have maintain that respect and coming from everybody. Whether it's a hospice person or a nurse in the hospital or anybody that steps into that room.
Yeah.
That's that you just have, and that's a part of awareness. That's part of awareness. Another thing that I was thinking of when preparing are the children. The children there's always a time that the younger children and grandchildren, they can be a part of that end of life um, experience. And it's not bad for them. And
No, no, it's not.
often you hear stories, though. I have heard many stories about the past, how they did it back then, and children were shielded
Mm,
because we don't want them to be scared or afraid or hurt. That's all your emotion
that's right.
talking.
That's right.
They need to see this.
They
No,
do.
I don't care how old they are. They need to come in and they need to hold a hand and talk and don't be and not to be scared,
Yeah,
because grandma's not sitting up in bed and she's laying down and but you have to make light of that situation. But it's important, I think, for children to see because when they don't,
I
oh
know.
my gosh, it makes such
Great.
a difference when you're a 30-year-old adult and seeing death for the first time. And it's not fair because death is a part of life and
That's right.
it should be in the process, right?
Agreed. Agreed. Very much so.
Yeah.
Life completion. People want to say goodbye, and that's really important. And feel like their life was well lived, and
Yeah.
come to some, and that's the last stage. Come to some acceptance of the end of death, which is what I just mentioned about, of course, that woman. Um,
Yeah.
yeah, and that's how she
And
felt.
this is an important piece of my legacy work. Okay. This is what I tell anybody that I can tell because it's so important. I have I've had a number of people do these projects, these legacy projects, and I get a call a year later or 2 years later from a client's family to let me know that they've passed because we've become friends over a 4 week period while we're building these projects. And they cry, but they're tears of happiness. And they tell me this just happened again yesterday, and that's why I'm thinking of this right now. And he told me, but it's all wonderful because we have this book.
Yes,
We have this book about our dad, and we know how happy he was in his life. We know how much he loved our mother and how much he loved us, and how being a grandfather was the most important thing in the world to him. We have it right here in your 6 pound book, Susan.
yes, yes,
So that not only, and I explain this to clients, it not only helps them later with the grieving process, but by doing these kinds of projects, it helps the person passing. It helps them to come full circle
yes,
in
yes,
their lives. We were born in a moment and we die in a moment. And it helps them to come to completion by doing some of these projects. And when you said that, come full circle, well, that's one of the books I
yes,
wrote
it
too,
is.
Lisa,
Yes,
Coming Full Circle.
yep,
But that's what made me think of that,
yes,
because it's so important for people to do.
it is.
Not to be sick, 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 go into the hospital, and then nobody says anything, and the lights are off, and we're scared, and what's going to happen, and they take their last breath.
Horrible,
Why should it have to be
horrible,
that way?
horrible.
It's and because I put myself though in those shoes in that bed.
Me too. Me too.
I really do.
Me
And
too.
and that's sad. If people are afraid of you or the circumstance or what's happening, stop. Don't be afraid. This is a natural part of life that will all happen. And if you're in your 90s, you're one of the lucky ones. My husband was 52. He lasted a half a life.
My
But
husband's
if you want to,
56, so there you go. However,
right.
I do
Yeah,
want to say something really interesting just because I visit my 98-year-old friend.
right.
There comes a point where you feel, or she feels, that she's outlived everyone, that there's really no life left in her. She really can't do much. She does eat herself. That's good, by herself. But she can't, I know, but she can't walk. She can't stand. She can't do, without 24/7 care, she wouldn't be in her home.
That's right.
And there does come a point where enough is enough. And she has said to me, this is not living anymore. That's what she said to me. Now she has some Alzheimer's, but she doesn't even remember that I came, but she does know who I am. And she has said that to me. And it's sad because she has had a good life and she has grandchildren, she has great grandchildren. I don't even know if they come because she doesn't tell me. Um, but I'm sad for her to be at this point, how she feels. We did the legacy books together. I wanted to make sure we did three of them for her three grandchildren, two grandchildren, and then her great whatever. So we've done a lot of work and all the stories and stuff, but it's sad for her. I just feel sad for her.
And it is for anybody, Lisa, that especially that has suffered. Well, she's at very old age, but suffering these illnesses, and they're in pain all the time, and
She
they're just
is.
sad, and you can understand why they become bitter,
Yeah,
right? Because who wants to live like that? They're just tired, and they just don't.
exactly.
We don't have to go. We don't
Yeah,
want to go
yeah,
there right now.
yeah. Okay.
Another thing that you could do that I wanted to mention. No, go ahead. You go first.
No, I was at a church this morning, and most of you know I don't have much religious connections, but they do mention what they call religiosity, which I'm not sure is even a word, and spirituality. And so some people have faith. The I guess he was a reverend or a pastor today, did speak about how she was very connected to the church. She did a lot of work. for homeless and for other individuals not as fortunate. And she did a lot, but in her quiet way. Okay, in her quiet way. And so meeting with the clergy was really very special. And of course, he came to the house. And so she might not have known that he was there, but the family knew that this was something that would be important to her. So
Exactly.
again, looking at people and what's important to them, what they need, you know, um, and understanding that and accepting that. You don't have to agree with anything, but you have to listen well to what other people feel, want, desire, and respect those.
That's right. That's right. As a very spiritual person or deeply religious person, um, do this sooner. You don't have to wait until the doctor says there's a couple days left. Do try and do this sooner than later because that's really comforting. Along with, I'm an avid reader all my life, and when I read different spiritual books, they make me feel good. They can turn my mood from bad to good, but they make me feel good. So know what they like and you read to them. Even if they're not awake listening with you at the moment and they're sleeping a lot, you can read,
Yeah.
right? You can read to them or have some audio playing. Speaking of audio, also another thing is nature sounds. I hear a lot about that because I do volunteer for a hospice as well. And they actually, in my hospice, made in every individual room, there's no shared rooms, but it's a glass wall with the doors that are full glass from ceiling to floor. And you open the doors, and there's a little patio so you can roll the bed out and the chairs, and there's all woods, and the birds are chirping, and the squirrels are running around. And they say that there's something really about nature, and especially if your loved one love nature. Okay, they have now you can put Alexa on, or
Mhm.
oh, I hope she doesn't come on, or YouTube nature sounds,
Yes, yes, yes.
and you could just quietly play it, not too loud.
Sure.
We don't want really loud music, soft, you
Yeah,
know.
talking about the senses, I just want to mention something about physical touch. You
Oh,
know,
please.
I wish that people would understand how important it is to hold somebody's hand, to
Yes,
hug them, to hold them. I don't know what's wrong. They're not.
they're afraid. They're afraid. People have that fear of the unknown. I don't want to hurt you. I don't want to break your hand when you're so fragile right now. They're just afraid.
Yeah,
But it is so important. And that's another thing that I was taught about end of life. To get the lotion out. Everybody's skin gets so dry at the end, just do their hands and their feet, unless they were never, a massage person to begin with, then you don't want to do that.
yes,
My
yes.
husband didn't want to be touched like that, right? So hopefully you know that about the person. But touch is so important. Kisses, brush the hair. You know what I mean? I think about me again being in that bed, and well, I want to be in my sleep. First of all, I know that, but um, whoever's with me, whoever's talking to me and caring for me and reading to me or playing some of the things I like, or you want to feel loved
Yes, you do.
and you want to know that it's okay. You will know because you'll have people around you, hopefully, whether it be the hospital or assisted living or hospice, when the hospice comes in, they will tell you about how many days you have to go.
They knew
Okay.
exactly. It was unbelievable. They told me
Right?
1 week and 1 week to the day he died.
Yes.
It
So
was
they really are
amazing.
pretty accurate with that,
Yeah,
right?
yeah.
And you just have to take that and you have to go with it and say your I love yous and, don't overwhelm the room with 20 people all the time. I would suggest
No,
like a time for visitors, right? Individually, have a friend come and sit for a little while. Then maybe have a grandchild and your daughter or son or separately, but try and schedule that so it works out that way. So it's not an overwhelming experience. And I can't use the word ambiance enough. I don't want to die in a cold, sterile
Yes.
hospital room.
Yeah, me neither.
I
Me neither.
want it to be cozy with all my pillows and blankets and
Yes.
books and candles and
Yes.
music
Yes. Yeah.
and we can all choose.
That's right. We
We can all
can.
choose that,
You
by the
need
way,
to
the
know
things
that.
that we
Yeah, I
love
would.
and put it
Yeah.
on a piece of paper,
Yeah. Yes.
right?
Yes. Yes.
You can if you
Yeah.
want to,
If you want to. You want to.
right?
I want to mention treatment preferences because most people do not want to just prolong life and they want to believe that all the available treatments were used that are appropriate. But the other decisions, you need to be really clear about what else or not else you want. I know that that's not great English, but the point is
Well,
this
that's all part of your advanced
that's
directives,
right.
Lisa.
That's right. And let's just mention that only because people need to write down. They say, "Oh yeah, they know what I want." Wait a minute. They may not know what you want, and they may decide what they want. So it's in your interest to always make sure that you write down what you want. Okay.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And there's a beautiful, and I think we might have even done a video on this. I'm not sure. The five wishes,
Yes.
did we?
Yes, we did. We did.
Okay, so look for the video on the five wishes. That's what it's called.
Yeah.
And it's a company that started doing this a long time ago, and there's just a few pages in there, but you can write such beautiful things in there. You can write, if you want to be buried in a red dress with a red hat on, you can put it in there.
Mhm.
And even if you don't have all your estate planning documents and paperwork that we really should pre-plan and have in order, you'll have your five wishes.
Yes.
And and people will respect those things. And that's part of your advanced directives, right?
That's right.
If you want to be resuscitated or not. And those kind of things are important.
Yeah, they are.
One thing that I do always tell families as well as advanced directives are important from 18 years old and up.
Absolutely.
Now, I don't, my boys don't have advanced directives and they're over 18, so shame on me, right? But a big reason is why they're so important. If your child's traveling, if your child goes away to college, if something happens, okay, the hospital and the doctors do not have to listen to you.
Mm, because
They really don't.
they're adults. They're legal adults.
They're legal adults, but no, if they can't speak for themselves, I'm talking about.
Okay.
Okay.
Yeah.
So in certain situations, yeah, maybe they'll work with you. You're the mother in another state. But really, the doctors can do their own treatments and do what they want wherever they are because there's an adult there and there's nobody there for them and there's no advanced directives in place.
Wow. That is a horrible thought, isn't it?
But it's big and it's the truth.
Yeah.
So that's something important everybody should know.
Okay. Quality of life. So quality of life is about living as usual as much as you can, maintaining hope and pleasure and gratitude, and that life is worth living. And we did our segment on the wake up call and how all of us need to really live in the present and really appreciate every day and all. But even as you're dying, or even as you have what we'll call limited time, because nobody knows anything, okay, really. I mean, in the end, nobody knows. You hear all kinds of stories and stuff. This person was diagnosed, but they live another 10 years. This person was diagnosed and they live 1 year. Nobody knows. But to maintain as best you can a life that you can live and a life that is full of pleasure, of gratitude, that it's a mindset. You know that it's a mindset. There are plenty of people who are angry, just angry, angry. And that's how they're going to die. They're going to die angry. Okay. Um, it would be better for them, I think, and better for everyone around them if they were able to feel differently. Uh, it's hard to change people.
And sometimes that's impossible,
That's
Lisa.
right. That's right.
I've
They
had
are, they
many
are.
end of life clients and I've been with them in the last moments with the family, right? And it was one of my first clients at the very beginning. She was by herself in a nursing home. Her husband died years before. She had no children.
Mm,
And her sister, who didn't get along with her, had hired me to go and to be with her a few days a week. They knew her diagnosis was about 6 months. So I was able to do some good things with her in the time that we shared, right? But she was still bitter for things that happened when she was younger, right? She didn't have the best marriage. She was bitter through the marriage. She was bitter when she got sick. That was part of her personality. What makes you think that it's going to change now at the end of her life?
True. You're right. You're right.
Right? So it's really a part of our personalities, I
It is.
think,
It
that
is.
come out. But that bitterness and being afraid, and that fear of the unknown
Yes.
that your loved one's feeling, you may not know that that's what it is. Maybe they don't speak on the level that you'd like them to. Maybe they're not sharing their words correctly, but maybe they're afraid.
Well,
Okay, so anything that you can do to reassure them, bring up the topic of conversation. What happens after we die? Do you know that this is the end of life, the end of your life? You heard the doctor say a few weeks. How do you feel about that? Open and honest discussion can lead to more open and honest discussion, and it can turn things around, really, if you have that right conversation.
but people are afraid and it is unknown. And how to respond to that fear is very challenging.
Sure,
Very challenging because we
it
don't
is.
have answers. I was very little and I asked my mother, my new mom, what happens after we die? And she looked at me and she said, "You know what, Lisa? No one has come back to tell us." That's what she said. That was a cute answer for my
I've
age.
heard that before.
Okay, for my
Yeah,
age. Okay.
yeah,
But
yeah.
she was being honest with me, she's being honest with me. So,
There are also many beautiful books out there about the dying process and end of life. Don't be afraid of them. Walk into a Borders, walk into a bookstore and go to the section and flip through the pages and get something that feels right to you.
that's a good idea.
They may not all be right,
Yeah,
but there are some beautiful, beautiful words of help and tools that you can use.
nice. Nice. The relationship with your healthcare provider and all the healthcare providers, okay?
Yeah,
The trust, support, comfort from physicians, nurses, all the people who are around you, that the physician is comfortable with death and dying. Some
that
of the
doesn't happen
it does,
often.
that's right. I'm reading a book about that. A surgeon writes about the fact that in medical school, he never learned to accept that there'll be people who he cannot help, period. And so
So, Lisa,
now they think
when you
they think they were a failure.
no, this is a big thing though.
It is a big
This is a big thing because medical people, oh my gosh, I can't rave more about them. They save lives and they do
yeah,
such wonderful things. But there's a tiny piece of the puzzle that has not been included in their studies over the years.
that's right.
Okay. And I'm going to tell you why I know this. If I talked about this in last week's video, but it might have been somebody else I was speaking to about it.
Okay.
I'm on a council at Stony Brook Hospital.
Yes, you did. You
I
told.
usually don't mention
That's
the
all right.
hospital,
Last week. Yeah.
but I was so proud of being able to put together that program where young students, are now come in and go through those scenarios about end of life. And just by learning little pieces here and there can turn the whole end of life experience around. So people that have been in the field for many, many years have not learned that before. They might not have that bedside manner that you're looking for, although some of them naturally do. Some of them, they're naturally born and bred to have that kind of response with people, but not everybody.
Hmm.
So I'm sorry I interrupted you
No,
there,
that's
but
okay.
that's what you were talking about,
It was.
that everybody around you may not be as have that bedside manner. Um, I've been doing a workshop. Tonight's the last night, as a matter of fact, on the pit, and that's a medical drama. And Dr. Robbie is the main character. He's Noah Wiley from the original ER. Did I said it right? Wiley? From ER back in the day. And he directed, he produced, he's the actor in it. I believe he's done everything to get this show up and running. And it is incredible. And the part that he plays as the head doctor in this emergency room, oh my gosh, you want every doctor to be like him. He is so sweet with people and comforting. And I won't even get into that now, but since the first episode, he grabs somebody's hands at the end of life and says, I think it was a family member, not the person in bed, but says, "You're okay. We're here to help you, and you're safe. You're safe here with us." And he's holding their hand and looking in their eyes.
Yeah.
And that whole scene gave me the shivers up and down my neck because you don't see that often.
Right.
When Jim was in the hospital for 55 days and I stayed there 24/7 with him, I did find a lot of nurses to be that way. A lot of the nurses, younger nurses and older nurses. I was really pleased at that. Not everybody, but we're starting to get into different topics here.
Yes, we are. We are. The
What else
last,
you have on that
okay, so
list?
the last one, which is listed under other, and again, these are common themes, is a recognition of the culture. Because everybody's culture is different. And so
Sure.
that's really important that you align yourself with the culture. We talked about culture, physical touch, but being with pets. I want to tell you about the pet story. My husband is in the living room and our two dogs are like around him, but the cat went right up on his lap and would not leave that lap. We actually had to pry that cat off him eventually. Would not leave.
Well, yeah, and there's many stories like that with pets,
Yeah.
both ways, the patient and the animal. So that's beautiful. I'm
Yeah.
glad you brought that up.
Yeah.
Um, and then, another thing is there's nothing wrong with documenting your experience.
Mhm.
So, of course, with permission, with your loved one, maybe take some photos of them with the family and with their arms around them, and maybe record some messages. This is really important. I'm a big one on the voice, on the recording. You know that if you've heard any of our videos before. Have a recorder while you're talking and telling stories. They'll become a treasure in your family's history one day. Or journal your experience too about how beautiful it was and peaceful it was. And I have to tell you, there is a stark difference between that cold,
Mhm.
dark hospital room and passing, and then the family making it a beautiful experience for their loved one, because there's something so warm in that after their loved one passes, they still feel the warmth.
That's right.
They still feel it. Well, it was so beautiful. And as an end-of-life doula, you need to know this. There is something really, don't be scared because there's something so profound and beautiful and not scary about a person when they take their last breath. And unfortunately, I became the doula because my husband died. And I was so scared and running up and down those hallways. I just wanted somebody to tell me what was going to physically happen so I could share it with my boys on their way down there. There was nobody there to tell me what would
Mm.
happen.
Mm.
The nurse that was on duty for him was very young. It was probably one of her first dying patients. I don't know. But that's one of the reasons I've went down my journey. Now, if if you knew, don't be scared. I've been with patients and clients who and family members who die at that very minute. Okay? Hold their hand and say it's okay. Tell them how much you love them. They don't convulse, they don't foam at the mouth. That's what I thought would happen. Um, they don't start having seizures. And this sounds a little eerie for me to say or for you to hear, but you might not have ever been told that before. So that leaves you with a little bit of that fear of the unknown and being scared. Okay. But I would tell you 95% of the time, none of that happens. None of that happens. And it's peaceful. And sometimes you don't even know. You may be holding the hand, looking right at them. That was a friend of mine. And we're having conversation. And she had a smile on her face. And then seconds later, she just wasn't there. And I didn't even realize it at first. Took me a couple minutes. In a few minutes, you kind of feel it. Just because I don't know the right words. I don't want to offend anybody, please, with my words, but almost like the lifeblood
Yeah.
just came out of them, or their spirit came out of them, their soul. And now it's just their body laying next to you. They're not an alive person. So you'll feel that too. Okay. But don't be scared. Helping somebody through that journey and cross that bridge is one of the most, it's beautiful.
A gift. It's a gift. I've done it twice, my husband and my mom, and it is a gift. Yeah. And then to do it like you do with strangers you don't know, there are no words to express people like you who do such an
Yes.
incredible service. No, really, because I'm so grateful to everybody who helped us during that week. And they were incredible, loving, caring. And so I thank you for being able to do that work because it's incredible work. No words for it.
Well, you're welcome. But one of the things after you said that does stand out in my mind is when the transition starts to happen, and it's just a few hours from now. Sometimes the family can't react in ways that Lisa and I are talking today and can't make it a wonderful experience
Right.
because there's just sadness and agitation and walking out of the room and
Yes.
crying and
Yes.
laying on the bed and crying, and it can be a scene. But there's something about having a doula there next to you
Mm,
because this is something again that we've been taught where I was just talking, some of the medical professions haven't been
yeah.
taught years back to just be a presence there in their room and for them, for both the patient and the family. So when I take, if a woman's dad is in bed and he's the one passing, I'll take that woman's hand, okay, and I'll say, wait a minute, take a deep breath, take a deep breath. Do you remember what we talked about? Do you remember what we talked about last month or the month before? How this would happen and you would hear these gurgling noises and he's not in pain, and I give her the reasons why. And all of a sudden you see her shoulders droop and go, oh, yeah, that's right. You did tell me that. And okay, everything will be okay. Okay. So and now I may not know that family, from a hole in the wall or just having spent a couple months with them. But you, as a beloved family member, if you learn some of these things ahead of time, it can be that experience. And you'll know. You'll know, I think, just from a few things I just said a few minutes ago, not to be scared, to embrace it, embrace this time as the end of life. You will have your time too.
Yes.
And hopefully it won't be a
Yes.
tragic experience out
Right.
crossing Middle Country Road, or,
Yes.
it'll be a beautiful, warm, and loving experience. So if you can make that happen for the people in your life,
Yep.
please do it.
Please do it.
It only helps you and that it helps both of you, not one
Yes.
of you. It
Yes, it
helps
does.
everyone, right?
Yes. 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 Well said. I hope
Okay.
this has been helpful to a lot of people.
Yes. So on that note, I think we just want everybody to remember that there is no perfect roadmap that we
Mhm.
need to navigate.
Yeah.
This is a sacred journey, an individual journey for everybody. And what matters most is showing up, showing you love them unconditionally,
Yep.
deeply, respecting their wishes. And in doing all of this, everything we talked about today, you really have the power to transform one of the most difficult times in our lives into something meaningful and special to everybody. The greatest gift that you can offer is not protection from
Mhm.
death. Don't run. Don't be scared. Embrace it and just be a presence through it. And that's what we have to tell you today.
Well said, Susan. Thank you.
On that note,
On that
thank you
note,
all for visiting.
yes,
Please like and share our page with anybody that may need a little bit of tools and tips. That's what Lisa and I try and do and help educate. And go ahead.
and and any ideas that you have, anything in your life circumstances that you feel would be important topics, we are always open to new topics.
Absolutely. And looking for guests, new guests as
We
well.
are,
We've had several of them on, so check out our page.
we have.
Thank you very
Okay,
much, and we'll
take
see you
care.
next week. Bye, Lisa.
Bye, Sue.